It is time. It is time to make some master controllers, people. This is going to be fun because it's going to make it so much easier to use this character. Alright, so let me show you a few things that we want to do before we start building the master controllers. First, we want to group the rig, so I'm going to select everything except for that scene peg that's up above. So I've got everything from the master peg down below. I'm going to group it, Control G. I'm going to move that down here to this area, select that. This is why I love using middle mouse to move things around in the node view. Okay, so I've got the scene peg. I'm going to go ahead and attach that to the sketch layer, and I'm going to get rid of this backdrop. I'm going to select these and insert a new backdrop, which you can do by going here, insert backdrop. I have a shortcut. Alright, I'm going to just call this PTO potato V01. I'm going to color it brown because it just makes sense. Alright, I'm going to add a composite. So Control H, slide it in, and I'm going to call it PTO Master Comp. And I usually like these to be a little taller. It's too square for me. Okay. Move this. Now, you will notice if you ever click on this, it's going to take Harmony a little while to register that. It's because there's so much stuff inside of it. So just be prepared if you click on it and it's slow. That's just how it works. So I'm going to just call this PTO potato. Now there's this empty port. Let's see what's making that. There must have been something that I didn't plug in somewhere. Oh, that's kind of weird. So that's the arm. No, I need that one. This is the one I don't need. Where is that coming from? That's coming from the line art of the coat. Interesting. Did we not end up using the line art of the coat? I'm going to take a look real quick. Shift X, show the eyeball, color art, overlay. Okay, it's all good. We didn't use the line art, so just delete that. And we can get rid of that other weird composite that was created. Okay, I'm going to bring that multi-port out thing down here, bring the multi-port in up. I'll just show you this. So there's the multi-port in. And then there's something else that you should prepare for. Okay, now what we need to do is we need to make the master controller. So I'm going to come over here and press Control H to add a composite. So I left clicked and then I press Control H to add a composite. Again, you can find these shortcuts here. Okay, I'm going to call this Master Controllers Comp. Yes, please make it look that obnoxious. You'll see why soon. And then I'm going to plug that in, dragging, zooming out. I'll plug it into the main area. And I'll add a little waypoint. Control W is the shortcut I set for it. You have to do it just right. Okay. Put that down there so there's not so much crisscross. Okay. Now I'm going to make a backdrop. I'm just going to select the composite, insert a backdrop, hold Alt to drag it, and then make it bigger. I usually do dark green for my master controllers. Alright. Now what we'll do is we will start making them. But you have to make yourself a composite before you start, and you have to make sure that you have grouped your rig before you start doing all this stuff. If you change any of this afterward, it will break your master controllers. They won't work anymore. Okay, let's get started. So I'm going to pull up my master controller toolbar. So I'm going to right click and choose master controller. The first master controller I want to create is the turnaround of the rig. So I am going to come here and look through the turnaround. So I'm going to have that many poses to choose from. I want to start on 1. I'm going to go to 15. And this is how you do it. You get your slider wizard. Oh, you have to make a selection first. Now with the turnaround, you're going to select everything inside, not the master controllers, but I'm going to hold Alt and I'm going to drag across all this stuff. It actually doesn't matter to get all the composites and things as long as you've got the drawings and the pegs, but I like to just be loose and get all of it, pretty much. Alright, so now I can click on this, add selected nodes. It already did, it should have already added them all. Now I'm going to call this PTO underscore turn. I want it to be a horizontal layout. I don't think I want it to be inverted. I do not want to interpolate between poses. Or maybe I will show you what the interpolate between poses does first, and then I will get rid of that. Okay, I'm going to create it. Oh, I need to tell it what frames to include. So I'm starting at frame 1 and I'm going to frame 15. So start at 1, go to 15, and create. Click in here. This does not yet have a search box in here. You have to come down and click it. That's why I make it so big and capitalized and obnoxious looking. It's really easy to find in the list. Press OK, and then you have to come into your Harmony file and make your own folder for your potato or your character, whatever you're working on. You want to have your own for each character so that the master controllers do not interfere with each other if another character is in the scene. So I'm going to press save. Okay, it made me the turnaround. Now I want a little place to test things out on the timeline. So I'm going to copy the front pose and paste it here on 20 where nothing is here. And I'm going to use the animate current frame, transform tool, and scrub through and see how it works. Wow, that actually looks pretty good. Notice the little points, okay, the little decimals. This is working pretty well for this character, but there's going to be a time where it starts to get kind of messy, and that's probably going to happen right there. And then here it gets a little messy. You see that hat and the handkerchief having a hard time. But then after it works just fine. So in this case, I think I actually do like this scrubber. But I'm going to show you what you might do if you're just having too hard of a time and you don't like how it's treating you. Okay, I still have this open. Let me do a different one called turn around. Okay, now look at this. It says node count is 131. Apparently what happens is once it makes it, it still has the important ones selected, but maybe it just got rid of having cutters and composites and effects nodes in there. But I'm just going to hold Alt and select it all again. And this time I will press add selected nodes. And the difference that I will do is I will not interpolate between poses. So I'll create, and I will come down here and choose OK. And I'll just I need to go into that folder and do turn around. Okay, and I want you to notice the difference. Okay, now it plugs these things in over here. I'm going to just disable the turn. So here's the turn around, the new one. it's a good idea to start on a pose that you know will work. So I'm going to copy and paste that front-facing pose again. And now I'm going to use this. So notice how it's jumping by one whole number each time. So basically what it's doing is it essentially put a keyframe on each of these positions in the timeline, and it is only going to give me those positions. But the other one will interpolate between all of those keyframes, so you get some weird stuff happening occasionally. But I really do like the fine amount of control that I have to go between these poses. Okay, so that is the turnaround. I'm going to delete that one, and in order to fully delete it, I need to go into the scripts folder and delete the script. This is just like a text document, Harmony saved keyframes and cell swap information that just it spits back onto the timeline. So I'm going to press delete. It's just a little script file. I don't need it. All right, so I've got the turn, and I'm going to add a peg to it, Control P. And I'm going to use animate off mode, so I'm just going to slide it over here. I'm going to scale it up, and this will be my first, the first thing that I do when I'm using master controllers. Is, use that. Okay, next up, let's make another master controller. Let's make some for the shoes, because they turn with deformers. So we need a little control to make it happen. All right. So I think I want to try this shoe first. And I'm going to close out of this master controller slider wizard because I'm done with that one. All right, so I want the shoe and the sole and all that stuff to come with it. So I'm going to hold Alt, and I'm just going to select this much stuff. Now I'm going to click on the slider wizard. I want frames 300 through, how far do I want to go? 300 through, and that is 325. I don't really, I think interpolating will be fine here too. But if it gives me too many weird results, then I'll just not interpolate. So we're going to go PTO underscore shoe. And which one is this? Is this in the clone? Yeah, this is in the clone. So I'll go shoe clone. You have to make one for each. Okay, now I'm going to create, and I'm going to attach it to the composite. Oops, wrong one. Press OK. Go into the folder and save it. Go to our test spot. Oh, looks like yeah. I'm going to copy the front and paste it here. Use animate current frame, and then slide and see how it goes. All right, I like it. Even the interpolation, I think, is working just fine for me. Cool. So that one's ready. Now, I can just leave this thing open. It already has the right stuff for doing the other foot. But I will come in here and click on the potato stuff and press garbage can. So now it doesn't have any nodes that it's ready to make a script from. I'm going to click on this foot. So I now need to get all this stuff. I'm going to hold Alt and drag across these. And I'm going to add the selected nodes here. And I'm going to just call it shoe this time. And I'll create. Attach it to the composite. Oops. Okay, let's head over to the master composite area and move these around so they're not on top of each other. I'll press D to disable the other one. Alright, so let's see how this works. Okay, this is a little weird. I'm scrubbing that way, but it's turning counterclockwise. So I think I want it to go the other way. So this means I want to invert the direction of this shoe. So I am going to delete that. And I will make sure to select my nodes again, holding Alt, selecting that stuff. Add selected nodes, goes from 6 to 14. And I'm going to name it the same thing it had been before. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to just click on the previous one and it'll say, "You sure you want to replace it?" Yep. Here I am on my testing frame, and let's see. Yes, that feels better. So I scrub to the right and it turns clockwise. That makes more sense to me. Okay, so that one's good. Now I just want to move them. So I'm going to add pegs to them. Select them both, Control-Shift-P. I'm going to use the red animate off mode. So here's the clone one, so that's going to be, I keep forgetting, which side is the clone one on? Okay, that's the clone one. So I'm going to want the clone over here. And I'm going to move it to the right. And then I'm going to select both of those pegs and move them down. I suppose you could put them down here if you wanted, but I kind of like to just keep all my master controllers over here off to the side. Next up is the tougher one. This is going to be the torso tilts. And this character doesn't have a separate head. The head is built into the torso, but normally when I'm building a character, I do a torso tilt set, and the head will come with it, like all of that stuff, and then I'll do a separate set of using the same frames, but just having the head. Okay. So I'm going to save and start working on this. I don't need this slider wizard anymore. Now what we're going to use is called the grid wizard. Okay. So I am going to say, okay, what do we want included in this torso tilt? Actually, you know what I might want to do? Might want to do full body tilt. Let me just tell you what I'm thinking through here. I usually don't do anything with the legs when I pose these things out, but since I did pose out the legs, maybe I will include them in these torso tilts. Get rid of that tween. Okay. Here we go. I'm just going to select everything except for the master controller stuff. That does not get selected and put into the script. I'm going to select everything from here over. Oh man, I'm selecting the master peg. I don't know that I want to use that. I think I want to have one that has the full body and one that just has the torso. So I'm going to do two sets of these. Alright, so we are going to go up to our master controller, grid wizard. Now how many spots do we need? Let's see. It's going to go down. Okay, so you have the front, and then the almost front, and then the quarter, almost profile, and profile. So we're going to need 5 across how wide it is. We'll just do new. 5. Okay, 5 by 3. We'll have the front, almost front, quarter front, almost profile, and profile. So we'll go OK. and I want to now choose all the parts on the timeline that represent the parts. Okay. So here's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to do the center. So here's the front. So I'm going to click on that point, and it says, oh, you're on frame 1. Is that what you want? Yep. And then I'm going to click on frame 2. That's going to be the almost front. So click on that, press OK. And then I'm going to go to quarter front, enter almost profile, enter profile, enter. Okay. Now I am going to do the downward tilt. So here's the front, enter. Oh, I'm wrong. This is the front. So now I'm going to click on that, and it doesn't bring that little dialog back up. If I double click it, it will bring the dialog back up. Or I could simply click on that green point, come here, and then type the number that I want. So then I'm going to come to this almost front, click on it, OK. Alright, so now I've taken care of the tilts down. Now I want to get the tilts up. So here's the up for the front, almost front, quarter front, almost profile, and profile. Okay. We're now ready to make our master controller. I'm just going to select everything one more time, holding Alt, dragging across all the important stuff, add selected nodes, and I'm going to name it PTO underscore full body tilt. And I will create that. Oh, before I create it, I'll create it and then I'll remake it, because I think it's important for you to see this. Master controllers comp, press OK, put it in the right spot. Okay, now watch what happens. I'm going to go to my test spot, and I will drag this around. It's looking pretty good, actually. So I'm actually liking this, but most of the time it doesn't work out this smooth. Most of the time you see a lot of stuff popping in front and behind, and so I will show you a way to make it so that it works a little bit more the way that you would expect it to. Alright, so I'm really liking this, but I'm going to try this out and show you this strategy here. I am going to take this point and I'm going to move the position further towards the corner. Okay, I'm going to move this one out further. And sometimes you can't type it in, like it gets kind of weird occasionally, so just use these little up and down arrows sometimes when you need to. If you're building a more complex character, I think that you're going to understand a little bit better, but watch. I can click on these little points and it takes me to that frame in the timeline. So there's some stuff that pops here, like the arm pops in front of or behind. Over here on the profile, the eyeball pops in front of or behind. So what this is saying is, with this grid, I get just a tiny spot for that widget to show that messed up part. And then I get a nice big spot for it to do a lot of tweening for me. So now I'll go ahead and create another tilt. Let's just call it full body tilt extra. I'll delete it later. I want to make sure that I have everything selected. Alt, select, create. I'm going to put a couple of pegs on these, Control-Shift-P, just to move them out of the way so you can see the difference of what's happening here. Okay, so I want to make sure I'm on my test spot. Okay, so here's the full body tilt, and notice how there's a little bit of a spot right here where the pop happens. Okay, but now if I use this one, it goes straight from that to here. Like you don't, that pop happens so fast that you don't even notice it. And I have much more time to tween between these nice views that I've spent time to tween. Okay, so something I am noticing is that spot looks kind of weird when it's coming from there over to here. It's not a huge deal, but it makes me think that I should put it somewhere else. It looks okay when it's here on the side, but then when it's here at the bottom, it looks kind of strange. So that means I need to adjust this bottom down view. So it needs to be up here, I think, in order for it to tween on and look okay. And then I'm going to come over here, wipe this out, tween, insert a keyframe. Okay, I think that's probably going to look a little bit better now. So what kind of tilts do I want to stick with? I kind of like the extra one. It does more of the tweening in the place that I'm happy with. So what I'm going to do now is delete all of these. And I am going to come here and get rid of the word extra. And I am going to select everything holding Alt. I'm not selecting the multi-port in or out or the displays or anything. Just add selected nodes. I'm going to come in here and I am going to delete the previous ones myself. I'm just clicking on it and pressing delete. And then I'm going to name it what I want it to be named right here. Let's see if I fixed that. Yeah, that tween's nice now. It comes from off the side of the face, and it makes sense where it's going to. I could work on the back stuff, but I think this is good enough. I mean, I don't think people are going to notice too much. I think it looks pretty good. Okay, so now I have my full body tilt. I'm going to add a peg to it, Control-P. I'm going to use the animate off mode and move this over here. So that's the full body. So first I'll do the turn, then I'll do the full body, then I'll do the upper body. So actually, I think I want to reorganize this. I'll put this down here, and then this up here. And I can scale it if I want. I hold Control-Shift middle mouse to scale it, just so they all line up. It'd be kind of nice if they do. Next up, I know that all the tilt stuff is on these same frames, so I am going to come here. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to delete all the potato stuff. Okay, so I deleted all the potato stuff, And now I'm going to take these legs and I'm going to move them over to the right. I don't want the legs and the waist included in this next set of master controllers, so I want to show you something that I like to do occasionally. I don't always do it, but I am going to select all of this stuff and I'm going to insert a backdrop. So insert, backdrop, and then I'm going to hold, I'm going to make it really small. And I'm going to say that this is included in torso tilts. I don't think I needed to use the underscores, but that's just a note for those are the ones I'm going to include. And then sometimes I'll make another one. Select that, press insert, hold Alt to drag it up, and then drag this out even further. And I will put a note on it and say included in full body tilt. Might as well get rid of the underscores in here. And I would do the similar thing if I were doing a mouth that was a deformer mouth and I had posed out all the keyframes to get all the positions instead of the swaps. I would simply do the same kind of thing. Select the nodes that I wanted to include, and I would shrink it down, and I'd say included in mouth master controllers, something like that. This is just so if anybody in the future needs to remake them, they'll know how many of these things to include. Because I even forget which ones I've included sometimes. And I'm not going to bother with the shoe. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the master controllers just for the body. So I'm going to select all of this stuff. Oh, and actually I think that I don't want to include the master in this one. I'm going to hold Alt. I'm going to come down here. So yeah, I'm going to move this up there. That will make more sense to me, I think. Okay, so now I'm going to make all of these. I'm going to add the selected nodes here, and I'm going to create, oh sorry, that was off the screen, but add the selected nodes, and I'm just going to say PTO torso tilts. Create, add it to the composite. And then let's test it out and see if it works. Okay, so torso tilts. And I'm just going to organize this so it makes sense to me. I want the torso tilts to be the top. The turn is right above the shoes. Okay. There, I think that makes more sense to me. Alright, I'm going to add a peg up above it, Control P, slide it over here, hold Control Shift and middle mouse to size it up, and then I'm going to choose Animate Current Frame, and I'm going to make sure I'm on my test frame, 20, press 0, collapse the timeline, and then move it around and see how that works. So that's just the body, it leaves the legs alone, which sometimes that's what I'm going to want. I'm just going to want to do some torso tilts. Now, you could make master controllers for the eyes to look around. You could make master controllers just for the hat. You could make some really elegant eyebrows and choose with master controllers. You could keyframe stuff. So the reason you want to use master controllers is whenever you're posing stuff out with keyframes and deformers, and that's the only way to get what you want instead of swaps. All right, so now I've got all of my master controllers created. I'm going to select the shoes and use the animate off mode and just scale them down so that they fit within this imaginary box, this imaginary rectangle here. Okay, so here's all my master controller stuff, and I feel like it's pretty obvious what it does, but I will show you a technique that some people like to use. I use it plenty. I am going to add all of these. I'm going to go Control P. I selected all of them. Control P bundled them all together. I'll just say MC PTO Master Controllers -MP. That's a huge long name. I'll get rid of the MC at the beginning. Potato Master Controllers Master Pick. Okay, and then I am going to connect this up here. Oops, I don't want it to go like that. I actually want to drag a cable from the multi-port in down to here. So if I'm ever moving the scene peg around, those are moving with it. But if I am ever just using the master peg, if I'm trying to do some squash and stretch or skew, or he jumps, the master controllers stay where they are. And that is important to do. I like to leave it that way. So the technique that some people like to use, I'm going to press Control R to add a drawing layer. I'm going to say this is PTO MC reference. Add and close. And I could use handles, the handle swatch. I'm going to press Alt 7, which gives me my rectangle tool. Sorry, I don't have that here on the screen. And my shortcut's not working anyways. Alright, I'm going to go to frame 1. I'm going to create an empty drawing, Alt-Shift-R, F5, extend the exposure to 800, and then I am just going to use the line tool, or the stroke tool, and I will show my strokes by pressing K. Actually, I'll just bring this all the way down. I'm holding Control and Shift to make a duplicate as I drag. Hold Control and Shift to do that again. Nah, I'll just use the stroke tool and hold, yeah, stroke tool, just making some boxes. And then I would paint bucket. And then what some people like to do, I'm going to cut it and paste it on the line art layer. What some people will do is they will sketch how this works. So maybe, let me just get a darker color. So when you're over here, here's the potato. And he's looking straight at you. Press K. And then here, he's looking up. And then here, he's looking down. And maybe it would even be easier if you just write it up and down. And then you have your front view, your quarter front view, and then your profile. So sometimes people like to make a little reference like that where you can kind of see what the widget's going to give you when you start moving it around. If I were bothering with it, I'd probably try to make it look a little bit nicer. These look kind of cheesy. I guess since I'm giving this out, I want it to look nice, so. Okay. That's pretty decent, I guess. Yes, I just held the eraser and I pressed O. You hold the O button, the letter O, in order to resize it on the screen. Control-Shift-F, flatten it all. Control-Shift-F, flatten it all. Control-Shift-F, flatten it all. But this controller is so obvious that I kind of don't think that you even need the reference. And honestly, I think it's going to get in the way. So I'll just shrink it down, fit it in here, shrink that down, fit it in here. There, I think that works. And then I'll go ahead and draw the arms so that you know that the arms are going to come with it. That actually kind of helps to show you the way that it's going to move. Control-Shift-F to flatten it. Alright, next up I will go ahead and copy those. I'm going to hold Control and Shift and bring them down here. But this time I'll go ahead and draw the legs on there too, because now you'll be able to see the difference that these are going to bring legs with it. Control-Shift. Well, looks like it wasn't lined up perfectly. There you go. Control and Shift. The potato turn is so easy to understand that I'm not going to do anything. And the shoes, I'm just going to leave it. And so this would be the end of my master controllers, but I am going to do this. I'm going to name the master controllers. No, 1. Sure, I'll leave it named 1. But I am going to make a 0 swap. Create an empty drawing, rename it, Control D, 0. So this one, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to come up here to the sketch one. I'm going to copy the art, just select it, show the eyeball. Oh, I was in peg selection mode, so I wasn't selecting it. Alright, select it. And then I'm going to go to the master control reference and paste it. Hold Shift, scoot it over here. And then I am going to title this MCs. I go to the drawing view. Which layer is this on? Oh, okay. MCs. And I'm going to make this black, and then the circle is going to be the handle color. Now in the camera view, I've got these two, I've got both of these up here so you can quickly find where the sketch layer is and you can quickly find where the master controllers are. And then if you swap to the right, I'll make a note of that. And I'm going to select all the black and put it on the overlay so I can move it independent of the purple thing below it. Okay, so what I mean by this is if you were to select that little handle, if you select the little handle and you swap it to the right, then that's what you get, or you swap it off to the left. Finally, I'm going to connect that reference there. I might as well add a peg, Control P, hold Alt to slide it into the cable. I'll go ahead and put rotation points on all this stuff, even though it doesn't really need it. I just like it to not show up as not being set. Interesting, this one's not showing up. Well, guys, I just want to take a second to set myself straight here, okay? So I discovered that the place I was just showing you where to put the pivot points is not the best idea for the pegs for master controllers. So watch what happens if I click on the peg and the master controller and I choose show controls. Look at what happens. This little 3D manipulator thing and the widget for the master controller, they show up in the same spot, and sometimes even the pivot shows up in the same spot. So to avoid a big mess of confusion and to be able to move that little red widget easier, I recommend that you actually use your rotate tool on your peg layer and put it somewhere else that is not in the center. Okay, so just to be clear, I would move these all somewhere else so that when you click on them and show the controls, it's easier to get that little red widget. Okay? And I will tell you, occasionally what I'll do is I'll make all these body master controllers here on the right, and then I'll make mouths on the left. So if I did a deformer mouth, and what I mean by that, let me go to my sketch layer really quick and I'll show you. And now I can just draw. When I make a deformer mouth, what I'm doing is I make a straight line, and then I have a bunch of black space here, and that stuff is on the color art layer. And then I have another black line. I'll just do it in a different color. I have another line, and then it goes up like this. And so I've got two lines. There's the lower lip and the upper lip. So the lower lip, you're going to see it, and then you just say whenever the color art from both of these layers intersects, so you use the white mask, the reveal, right? It's the little mask that's a cutter. You use that one to say whenever the green and the red intersect, that's going to be the inside of the mouth. And then you just tell it that's where the teeth are allowed to show up, that's where the tongue is allowed to show up. But you make sure that you put the line of the lip in front. So anyways, that's a topic for another day, but that's the gist of how to do it. I realize I need to tell you a couple more things about master controllers. So when I'm building a deformer mouth, most of the time what I'll do is I'll create a different set of master controllers here on the left side, and I'll start with like the closed mouth up here at the top, and then it goes to the O and the U, then the F, and every other special mouth. And then what I'll do as I scroll across, I start with happy, it goes neutral, and then it goes sad as I go to the right. And so I have this big grid. And then what I would do is, I just have to grab something. I use the Stack Wizard. So with the Stack Wizard, what you do is you build the grid for like the front set of mouths with the deformers and stuff. And then there's a slider on the side that'll go up to the next set of grids, and then the next set of grids, which means you can have the front, and then you can have another set that will have the quarter, and then another set that will have the profile, so that you can have those three different sets of mouths, depending on which slider part you're on. So I will just show you, or just mention real quick, how you can find more. If you go to Toon Boom Learn Portal Journey, and you go to Rigging Artist, you come down to Rigging 3 with Harmony Premium, Master Controllers on Rigs. This is a really great introduction to how to use master controllers in more depth than what I gave you here. So I'd highly recommend this. This is how I learned to do master controllers. Okay, the other thing that you need to know is, how do you see the master controllers? Most of the time, if you click this gray tick mark, hide all controls in your camera view, you won't see them. So when you come into your file, you need to find the master controllers. So you would come into the group, you'd head out over to the side, and then you select all the master controllers you want to see, and you click on the orange Show Control button. Now, we made an easier way to get over there. You can simply come here, click on this little tab, little handle selector, and center on selection, and then you're automatically here where the master controllers are. So that's why we like to make that little switch up there. If I had a big mouth master controller set up, I would make a reference for it over here, and I would have a separate swap. So I'd have like two of these drawing things here. And a lot of the time I will go ahead and make a static transformation and put them all here and bake the immediate parents transformation and then get rid of the peg. But occasionally some people want to actually move them around independently, so I'll leave that static transformation out. Alright, master controllers are done. So let me show you what happens. You have this file that you made, and it creates a script folder, and then you've got these interpolation slider things. You have to leave those there. And then these are the actual scripts. Okay. And as you saw, if there was a master controller I wasn't happy with that I needed to remake, let me show you how I would do that. So I've already gone through all the trouble of making all these poses. Now let me show you if I needed to redo it. This is how you do it. I would come here and I would use the Unroll Wizard. And I say Open Wizard. Okay, so it brings me up that grid that I made with all of the frames that were there. Now I can close the unroll thing, and now I can delete the previous torso tilts that I had. And then I am going to make sure that I am selecting everything that I needed. So torso tilts, which ones were those again? Oh yeah, it's all this stuff. So I hold Alt, I drag all that stuff, and then I say Add Selected Nodes. Looks like it already had them selected from previously. And then I say PTO Torso Tilts Create. And I'm going to just copy over the old one. So it's kind of weird. I delete it from the node view, but it doesn't delete it from the actual Harmony folders. But I'm going to override that, leave this open in case I need it. I'm going to come down here, move it over to where it's supposed to belong, scoot the cable, plug it into the peg, and I'll test it out and see if I like it. Remember, go to a spot on your timeline that is not one of your main spots, you know, like not one of your key poses for the turnaround or anything. Okay, that's looking pretty good. It's going to help so much stuff. When you're posing, this makes everything so fast. Alright, so now I'm done with the master controllers. And I even showed you how I would update the master controllers. So in the next video, I'm just going to show you how I would put this into the library and any last minute things before calling it complete. See you soon!